Okay, today I want to discuss a topic which is related to the evaluation of oligopolistic markets. And of course, this is a topic that we've discussed before, but just in order to revise, I will go through the main features of this market once again with you. So please do follow this video and subscribe to this channel. All right. So please do recall that we discussed the oligopolistic markets, and there is a separate video on that. And there we were discussing the King demand curve. The King demand curve, of course, explains behavior of the firms, but it has some criticisms. Okay, there are some problems which it leaves unanswered. There are questions it leaves unanswered. There are two important things that the King demand curve does not answer. It tells us that the prices are determined at a certain level in the market, but what it does not tell us is where do these prices come from, where are these industry-wide prices established in the first place. Okay, so this is the first criticism of the King demand curve. And the second is the King demand curve does not make viable predictions. Okay, the research that has taken place tells us that viable predictions have not been made on the basis of this model. So, in order to get around these problems, we have another a slightly more advanced and a slightly more complicated, but I'll try to make it as less complicated as possible for you, method, which is called the game theory, and it comes from what is called the prisoner's dilemma. I'm not going to go into the prisoner's dilemma in detail here, but yes, the game theory and the payoff matrix is something that you need to fully understand. So let's go back and look at some of the features of this market structure. The oligopolistic market structure. So what we said in the oligopolistic market structure was that there are few firms that dominate. There are some dominant firms. All right. The second thing is that the products are basically the same, but they are differentiated. So if you go to a petrol station or a gas station, and it's called in America, you will see that there are different types of color combinations. You will go and see that they are going to give you a certain service. There will be a small uh, store where you could go and buy things. Now all these things are there to add value, to differentiate their product from the other, which otherwise is basically the same product. There are also high barriers to entry. If you're making something like, just think about a petrol station. So if you are setting up a petrol station, it requires a sizable amount of investment. It may also require some knowledge about doing that particular business. So the barriers to entry are high in this situation. There is also interdependence. Now, interdependence here does not mean that people here are in love with one another and they will express solidarity. No, this is not that kind of interdependence. Interdependence is that your decision on what to do will depend upon what your competitor or the other person in the market, the other major firm in the market is doing. So your decisions will depend on his decisions. Also, we said that there is high price rigidity. What do you mean by rigidity? That irrespective of demand and supply conditions, demand and supply might change, but the prices will not change, and that explains the rigid price and the king shape of the curve. Okay, as I said, if you don't recall that, go back and watch the video again. In this situation, firms will choose not to do price competition. Look at the restaurants that are placed side by side, that are located side by side. They have the same menu prices. Okay, so what do they compete on? They compete on good service, the uniforms of the waiters, the melee, the all those things. They will determine whether what kind of competition will go on. So let's look at this matrix that you have in front of you. It is called the game theory payoff matrix. All right. And here there are two firms. We're just assuming a simple world in which there are two firms. There is firm A and firm B. They are interdependent. What do you mean by interdependent? That their decisions will be based on the decisions made by the other firm. So when you make a decision and you get a certain reward for making that decision, that is called a payoff. Okay, I repeat. So when you make a certain decision, you get a return on that. What will you get? A revenue. What will you get? A profit. But most likely we will use the word revenue. That revenue that you earn, in this chapter we will call it the payoff. Okay, so let's say, now look at the figures on the left. Okay, look at the figures on the left. The figures on the left is 2 million, 2.2 million, 1 million, 1.5 million. All right, so these figures are related to firm A. Okay, that is a very important thing to understand when you're reading the matrix. These figures are related to firm A, and then there are figures on the right. Now these figures are related to firm B. So when firm B reacts to a certain decision by firm A, it will get these rewards. We will see as we move on, we will see how they play out. All right, so what's going to happen? um, all right, what's going to happen? Let's say that firm B has two choices. It can either price its product at $1 or 0.9. The same choice is faced by firm A. It can price the product at $1 or 0.9. Now, let's say firm B gets to make the decision first. Now, firm B prices now we don't know what it will actually do, but let's say that they get to make the decision first, and if it's an if scenario, if they price the product at $1, okay, firm A has two options. It can also price the product at $1, and if it does that, it will get a return or a payoff in this case of $2 million. All right, it's getting a payoff of $2 million. On the other hand, it has another option. The option of pricing at 0.9 is not lost to it. It has that option. In that case, it will be, we use the word undercutting. Okay, it will be undercutting firm B by $0.1. Okay, their price is $1, they will price it 0.9. So this will be an undercut. If they make an undercut, they don't sell the product at $1 like firm B, they're selling at 0.9. They are making a revenue of $2.2 million. Okay, so now that is the higher payoff. So here, let's say I have underlined this 2.2 million. It means that this firm is going to price the product at 0.9. All right, if this happens, but it's not clear. Now let's say firm B decides to price at 0.9. Okay, it decides to price at 0.9. In that case, again firm A has the option of pricing at $1. In that case, it will make a payoff of $1 million. Okay, but if it prices again, if it prices at the same level, which is 0.9, so it will make a return of 1.5 billion. That's going to be the payoff. So again, once again, the decision is 0.9. Okay, now that is for firm A. That's a rational decision for firm A. What do you mean by rational? It's a reasonable thing to do. Okay, a reasonable man would do that. Now let's look at firm B. Now supposing the firm B is faced with choices. Now firm B says, all right, they have the option, which means firm A has the option of making a decision whether to price the product at $1. So now when they price at $1, firm B has the option either to price at 2 million, and read horizontally now, don't read vertically, because vertically is firm A, horizontally is firm B. So firm A 2 million and firm B 2.2 million. Which option is better for firm B? 2.2 million. So that is the option they're going to go for if this happens. But what if firm A chooses to price its product at 0.9? In that case, firm B will make a return, or the payoff for firm B will be 1 million, whereas the payoff for firm B, if it prices at 0.9, will be, which means 0.9 the same here, will be 1.5 million. Okay, so you get the answer, the game is solved, or you get the answer to this problem whenever you get two underlines in the same box. So the two underlines in the same boxes: 0.9 for firm B, 0.9 for firm A. Now that is the rational decision. Why is it the rational decision? Because firm A is not coming to firm B and telling them, hey, we are going to price it at 0.9. Nor is firm B going to firm A going to firm B and telling them what they're going to price at. This is a situation which is a prisoner's dilemma. You don't know what the other person is doing, and yet you have to reach the correct decision. Okay? Now, this situation where both you get two underlines in the same box and the two figures are the same, this situation is called the Nash equilibrium. The Nash equilibrium is the rational point, but it's not the point of maximum return for both firms. Look at this. The maximum return for both firms will happen here. 2 million for this, 2 million for this. Here both are making 0.5 million less. But why are they choosing this? Because two things have to happen here for this to succeed. One, they both have to decide jointly that they are going to price their product at $1. Okay, there is a price of less than $1 available, but they have to jointly decide to raise the price from 0.9 to 1. That requires a very high degree of understanding and agreement between the two. Okay, this is called collusion. So very good situation of collusion should occur, which is again a very iffy situation. The second is, even if such a situation is created, then what is the guarantee that the other firm is not going to undercut? What is the guarantee that the other firm is not going to cheat the other firm? So these are the two important evaluations of the matrix payoff, the game theory matrix payoff. The thing is that there is always a temptation to collude, yes, and there is always a temptation to cheat. Even if that collusion takes place, there is a temptation to cheat. Which brings us to the idea of the Pareto optimality. Okay, resources cannot be reallocated to make one individual better off without making at least one worse off. Okay, so go through these slides, go through this lecture once again, and I hope you've understood the game theory and the payoff matrix. All right, thank you very much indeed.